Welcome everybody to another episode of 32 and Beyond. In this particular episode, I'm going to talk to you about, getting sent out of state. I'm going to start to chop these up into little bit more bite-sized pieces, if you will, so that they're not really that long, but yet they still have the effect in how I want to share, because I want every one of these to sort of really ring a sort of a message on what I learned at whatever particular moment that I want to share. So this particular one was, because of overcrowding, Idaho, we're sending people out of state, and this had been the first time that happened. And so we were going to go to Appleton, Minnesota. And a couple of my buddies had gone before me, and they told me, hey, this is good stuff. You need to come. And at the time, at about 95, 96, I was living a pretty decent, I had a pretty good setup at, decent job and playing sports and what have you. So, I mean, really, it was kind of a roll of the dice to, volunteer to go out of state. But nonetheless, I did. And I feel like it was a pretty good decision over time, but like anything, it was a bumpy road once we got there. So buckle up and let's enjoy that journey. So when I got to Minnesota, I had a got your celly, you go on the tier, and there's two other states already there. There's Colorado and there's Wyoming. And, obviously all the states are dealing with overcrowdedness. Instead of letting guys out, they're freaking, I know what we'll do, we'll just go to the private sector. And then sure enough, CCA was a private prison, and Idaho contracted with them. And so just remember that these were the guys that paid the least, so they got the least kind of, professionalism from, their workers, their staff, their guards. So when I get there, there was kind of this, unwritten rule that if another state has a problem with somebody, let's say Idaho, then they would go to the representatives that Idaho had designated. And these are the residents, the inmates who designated these guys. And it was, Mickey Hoffman, Jeff Admire, and Tim Warnell. So these are the guys that, they were pretty much the guys. They were just big, huge, good dudes, but you didn't want to play with them. And so those were our guys that sort of the diplomatic liaisons to dealing with issues and problems and stuff. And so we lived on the tier with the other states, and it was fine. And so when I don't know, it's like third day there, maybe second day there. So these guys, they're knocking on my door and my cell door, and there's 5 of them, and these are pretty good sized Colorado guys. They're like, hey man, you got a guy that's living upstairs that he's an Idaho guy, and he's a freaking rapo, and you need to go take care of it. What? Well, I'm freaking 25, 26 years old. I'm just like, what's going on? I feel like if I don't go do something right now, these guys are going to jump me. That's going to be a problem. And so, okay. So I go upstairs and I knock on the dude's cell door and let myself in and kind of prop it shut behind me. I'm not trying to lock it, and I say to the guy, I say, hey man, what's your name? He goes, Kevin. I say, Kevin? Sean. Here's the situation, buddy. You see those dudes over my shoulder that are standing out your cell door window, staring in here right now? He's like, yeah. Yeah, they want me to come in here and mop the floor with you and then make you basically leave the tier. The good news is, I'm not going to do that. Okay. So let me tell you what happened. And he's trying to explain to me his crime. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't care at all. I just need you to do me a favor. When I leave, because I'm going to go to the gym, when I leave, I need you to do whatever it is that you feel like you need to do to rectify this situation. And if that's to check in or jump off the top tier or grab a cop, I don't care, because you're not my problem. They are. And I need you to make that problem go away. Because if you don't, and I come back from that freaking gym, then I'm going to be your problem. Is that fair? Yeah, man, that's fair. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. I said, hey, don't even worry about it, bud. So I leave. I walk outside the cell, and then those guys are like, okay, so what's up? And I'm like, yeah, he's checking in, man. He's going to bounce. Okay, man. Good looking out. Whatever, thanks. So I go to the gym, and I tell Jeff, who's at the gym, and Mickey, and they're like pissed. They're like, what? Yeah, that's not how that's supposed to go down. Okay, I don't know. I just know that I felt like I was in a jam. And they're like, well, we're sorry. This is going to get rectified real fast. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, what do you want me to do when I get back to the tier? Say, you tell those guys to come talk to me. I said, okay. So I do my thing at the gym, and I go back to the pod. And as soon as I hit the pod, those guys are running up to me saying, hey, man, that dude went and told on us. And I'm like, you think? And they're like, well, yeah, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, that's why we don't mess with those guys. Because they either tell on you or you got to whip their ass, and there's 5 that pop up behind them. So it's just, we just leave them alone, man. Unless, there are those guys that absolutely have a whole heyday that they love to, terrorize the sex offenders. Terrorize them. And that's fine. That's their thing. It's not my thing. And so I can promise you this. That's never going to happen again. So don't ever ask me to do some shit like that. Okay, man. If you have a problem, you talk to Jeff. Okay, so now I obviously went and I seen that they set up a camera in the freaking bubble. It's what we call it. It's a security station, and they pointed it straight at that dude's cell, and they're recording. So it's just weird because at the end of the day, I mean, that whole situation, I'd never even come up against anything like that before. But the reason I share that with you is because it was a little bit of a crossroad in coming up against a situation where I had to do something, represent someone, be about something that I just wasn't. And I think that we all come up against situations where, we kind of misrepresent who we say we are. And we go against the grain on who we have built and how we are, the beliefs and the rules and the attitudes that, we say we're all about. That right there was an instant where I absolutely went 100% against all of that. And I didn't know exactly where I was headed. I didn't know who I was going to be or the kind of work that I was going to really put into, the change that I needed in my life. But I can promise you that I did recognize that never again would I guess, forfeit myself to make somebody else happy. I would never go against the grain, against, my values. And terrorizing somebody and hurting others and all that kind of stuff, that just wasn't my lane. That's not who I was. It's not who I wanted to be. And even though I didn't know who I wanted to be, I knew it wasn't that. So I never let somebody from that point forward ever manipulate me again into traveling a road that wasn't my road. And I was pretty embarrassed. I was pretty ashamed of myself. And the learning lesson from that was, you stand by who you say you are. You stand by your beliefs. You stand by, the things that you say you value, and you have those represented in your life, period. And you defend them. You defend them with all that you are, because this is all that you have. And at 25, 26, I feel like that particular instant, and this is where God's good, man. He put these things in front of you, and you have to make the choice that's going to just bump that needle just a little bit towards the person that you want to be, even if you don't know who that is yet. It's guiding you. And I feel like that was definitely a little bump towards the direction that, I needed to go in, because eventually it walked me into a situation where I was able to start working with the kids. And that's really where things changed. And not going to talk about that in this particular episode. That's what we'll talk about next. But certainly, I guess the message that I would give you today is that, we all come up against those moments where, I guess we could say that we compromise. Don't compromise who you are for the sake of looking good or fitting in, period. You only get one shot at this thing. And I think the one thing that I can really say that is important is that, if you come up against God and you ask him, how'd I do? Let those moments speak for themselves. If you come into the situation where you're looking yourself dead off into the mirror and you can say, good job. Because sometimes that's just going to suck. It's gonna be the right thing. It's gonna be the absolute 100% best choice. But when you're going against the grain, sometimes it's just messy, and that's okay. If you're in a relationship that you don't want to be in, but you go along to get along, that sucks for everybody. If you're using drugs and alcohol because you haven't dealt with your monsters or your demons, you're misrepresenting who you are because you're better than that. You struggle because you're basically hiding behind the work, rolling up the sleeves and saying, I got to do something about this, man. This is not who I am. It's not what I'm about. And enough is enough. And that's okay. Because, that short-term pain, right, really does take you down the road of long-term gain. And then, you're the most qualified person to help those that are flirting with or going down the road you've already gone down. But you really can't do anything for them until you freaking fix your shit and be about who you say you're about. And so that's what that particular moment in prison really did come up. I'd never come up against that before. I was really very much about, whatever way the wind's blowing, I'm going in that direction because it's a survival thing. And I got that from my dad. I had to, duck and dodge. Everything was a freaking, and so that was something that I'm like, you know what? I don't need training wheels in this life. I don't need to go along just to freaking look good. I'm done with that shit. I'm going to go ahead and freaking stand by what it is that I say I am and be damned anything else, because I have to be able to freaking sleep at night. And sometimes, that's where you cut the dead weight of those that don't represent those particular beliefs. And I'm not saying we all got to be alike, but you definitely want to be on the same page. And who we surround ourselves with, those are the people that help us move that needle. Otherwise, they're the ones that are freaking, in the middle of the ocean. They're pulling you under. And what do you know? When somebody's pulling you underwater, what do? You knock them the fuck out, because you got to get out of them, and then you save them as much as you can, or you got to really say, I can't, and this sucks, but I got to grow forward, not backwards. So, all right, 32 and beyond. Every day is Disneyland, and a blessing, and I can't tell you how much I value you. I just ask that you value yourself as much. And just know that I see you. I appreciate you. You're a badass. And subscribe so that I can do this full time, because if I'm going to get 1 million viewers, a million subscribers, I can do this all the time. No? Yeah. Anyway, God bless. Have an awesome day, and I appreciate you.